Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's Tuesday night. We've got the gangs all here. Today, we're going to talk about some really cool, obscure albums that we feel more people need to know about. And the folks who are taking part in this, we've got from upstate New York, Eric Porter, the Professor of Prog, Ken Golden from the Laser's Edge. Chuck Alvarez is here with his bottle of ketchup. Louis Nasser from Chicago, George Lamie from Chicago, and all the way from the UK and Scotland, Stephen Reid. So so what we've got here today is, we talk a lot about on this show about these kind of obscure albums. We can't talk about Yes and Genesis and Rush all the time. We have to talk about some of the really great nuggets that are out there waiting to be discovered. And, not only are there great nuggets from the 70s that probably a lot of you haven't heard, there's a lot of more contemporary bands that definitely need your attention that are playing really cool prog rock that nobody ever talks about. So we might have a mix of all of that today. And we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. So we're going to go Eric, we're going to go Ken, Chuck, Louis, Stephen, George, and myself, and then we'll go round and round. We've got 5 picks each. Maybe we'll have some honorables at the end. So Eric, what do you got for us?
All right. It's obviously kind of ironic that we're talking about obscure bands on a channel that most people would consider obscure bands.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start with something George introduced me to, and this will be for the Chicago boys, Louis and George. And Pete, you reviewed this as well, Kick the Cat. This came out this year. There you go. And George had recommended it, and they are killer. I believe they've been around since the late 90s or early 2000s. 4 CDs, if I'm not mistaken. But they're labeled fusion, but this CD is kind of all over the place. I mean, they rock. There's almost even some 50s sounding stuff on here. Every once in a while, but the musicianship is top notch. I know they just did a short tour, I think the Northeast and Midwest. So they are out there. And this is a band that definitely deserves your attention. Kick the Cat from Chicago.
Nice.
Hey.
Hell yeah.
I got to get the other ones.
Yeah, it's all good. Of course, Eric, you know why I have them handy, right?
They just played here.
I stepped on somebody already, huh?
Tell you.
Barely begun, right? Good thing I have backup. So
those guys just played here.
Yeah, they just were a short tour, I think.
Yeah. But I'm still too afraid to go to shows. So
Really?
yeah, I'm too much of a wuss.
Well, it turns out that the Omicron is not as it's contagious, but not as toxic.
That's what they're saying.
That's some good news,
That's what the stock market is saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's also what Johns Hopkins is saying. Fuck the stock market.
Who? Oh, I know him.
But yeah.
all right, cool. We got Kick the Cat. All right, Mr. Golden, what do you got for us?
All right. Well, as I just kind of mentioned to Pete, I didn't really want to dig way too deep because I think it's more fun if I come up with stuff that people could actually buy, either on CD or vinyl. So, and also obscure, it's kind of a relative term because it really depends on your depth of knowledge. I mean, I've been collecting for 45 years and selling a lot of music for 33 years. So I know a lot of bands. And so I just kind of decided to pick the middle ground, and they're all bands that you could obtain, and they all deserve the better fate than they got. So my number 5 is, this one is kind of obscure. Robert Connolly, Plateau. You guys know this?
Nope.
Robert Connolly, he was he's well known in Canada. He was a TV producer, and he also put out a series of CD-ROMs in the 90s espousing theories of Earth being visited by aliens. He's has an Eric von Daniken obsession. So in '78, he self-released this science fiction album called Plateau. It's kind of cool. He's got a double neck on the back, and it's a concept album. It was inspired by Chariot of the Gods. It's got that's the theme, and it even comes with a comic book.
Comic book.
Check this out, man. Chuck, you don't know this album, right?
No, I'm surprised.
Oh yeah, I mean it's black and white, but it's kind of a cool thing. So it's probably overlooked because the album never got reissued. Supposedly Connolly's been approached. He said the master tapes don't exist. He mostly plays keyboards. It's a lot of Hammond organ, a lot of Moog, some Mellotron. He's got two different bands playing on there. One side's got a female vocalist, second side is a male vocalist. It's got it's got all different influences. You hear like a little ELP and triumvirate. I even hear like a little bit of Nectar, but it's got sort of this 70s US prog feel, that bands like Kansas, and there was Zazu. There was so many of these bands, even maybe a little Styx, where it's got a little bit of that AOR thing going on. So kind of cool, and there's a CD bootleg out of it, but there's no legit CD reissue. But if you could find it, it's not like a major investment, but it's a really cool album. I was kind of agonizing over, I had a whole long list, and then at the last minute, I kind of came up with this idea. Robert Connolly. Not that many people know this album. It'd be kind of neat. So anyway, that's what I got. Robert Connolly, Plateau.
As we speak, hundreds of people are on Discogs typing in Robert Connolly,
Including Chuck.
I worked with Robert Connolly.
Yeah, man. You see that comic book, and
I'll get a little happy there, man.
Yeah, I know. I could tell, man. I know.
and then you order a used LP, it shows up and there's no comic book inside. It's
Oh man, I'll be pissed.
I know. Right, for sure. Guaranteed.
All right, our center square tonight is Chuck, as a matter of fact. And you're up.
All right. Okay, my number 5 is a 70s American band. From Florida. They did a few albums, like probably like 2 or 3 albums, and they were kind of hard to pigeonhole. You didn't know whether or not they were a metal band. They really weren't a Southern rock band, although they were Southern. But so they didn't know where to put these guys. But the debut album of a band from Florida, White Witch. I don't know if you guys ever heard of these guys.
Yeah.
A lot of spooky shit on there, man. Very hard and heavy. It's like an American version of Uriah Heep. Probably even like a little bit of Sabbath, Spooky Tooth. Always loved this album, and it's very strange because people who have asked, they're like, people from down south, they're like, oh, have you guys ever heard of White Witch? I was like, well, they played a couple of their songs here, back in the early 80s when our rock station over here was still pretty good. But going back to this band over here, White Witch, their debut album, eponymously named White Witch.
What year, Chuck?
1972. Mm-hmm.
They were signed to Capricorn, and they did not fit on that label at all.
Nope.
All these Southern bands were on there that, Marshall Tucker and all the other ones, and then they had White Witch. It's like, But yeah, really good album, actually.
It's a very damn good album, but like you said, they weren't Southern rock like their peers. If you heard them and so, you would think that they were the cousins to Uriah Heep. That's why I always put them to, but like probably just a little bit more harder and rocking.
Yep.
Eddie Henderson had 2 albums on Capricorn.
He did.
You never heard those?
No, never heard them.
They sound like Mwandishi.
No, cool. Well, I'm gonna have to check that out.
They're amazing.
Place we need
Eddie
to go
Henderson
to.
albums. Oh, they're extraordinary. They're reissued, I think, as a legit. I think both albums on 1 CD, if I recall.
Okay.
Realization was one of the albums, and I don't remember what the other one was. Pete, did you ever do a show on just like US Prog? I missed it. That was pre-Ken.
It was a while ago.
PK.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I think that was early this year, maybe really early this year. I don't know. Losing
There were a
track
lot
of time. It's December already. I can't remember what I did for breakfast this
There were
morning.
a lot of good US bands that never get talked about.
Yeah,
Well, White Witch was one of those bands. Mhm.
good choice. All right, Lewis.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of follow on Ken's lead. I don't want to talk about bands that are like really ancient or that are difficult to find. I want to focus on bands that you could actually go see play live today.
Nice.
And if you haven't seen them, you really ought to go see them because they're great. So my first choice, and again, there's no, I guess, number 5, but these are not ranked in any particular order. But this is a band that I discovered long before when I shortly moved to Chicago. I saw him play at a club called Subterranea, and I was really impressed by the drummer, who I later learned also played in a Tool tribute band. So, you know, the dude can do the Danny Carey parts down.
Nice.
The band is called Yolo Cry. I have seen them play in front of nobody, like so many other of these bands. They're really great. And I do have to say that their latest album, which I know that you mentioned it, Pete, but I think people really do need to give this, because, you know, I always look at how many views the videos have, right? And, you know, if you're ranking the new Yes album, then all the guys who want the dead cat with a logo show up. But, you know, for something like this, there aren't that many. So The Ironic Divide by Yolo Cry is my favorite of the records. And if you want to hear Tommy Murray play, who was also a really, really great guy, he just put up on Facebook today a drum playthrough of part 2 of the title track, which is called a Torment of Reason. So if you want to go see him, he just does these Facebook, you know, videos where he's just drumming. It's great. I love this record, and we're going to be playing some shows with them next year. So, you know, I think it's going to be a really good time. So, Yolo Cry, love these guys.
I like them a lot. Yeah, I mean, I echo Lewis's statement, and I think if you want to hear more in-depth information about what that album is all about, I did do a review of it a couple months back, and well worth your time. Really, really good stuff. And yeah, they
Really great record,
and you'd want to see live.
Yeah,
very cool. All right, Stephen, what do you got?
Well, I think we've kind of come across similar ideas here, because I thought, well, you know, with the knowledge on this panel, I'm not going to out obscure anybody. That's just a fact. So I've kind of tried to come up with bands that are still current, that I don't remember hearing on the channel. Doesn't mean to say that they haven't at some point, because so much content and such a small memory that that's never going to work. So I'm trying to give a signal boost, same again as other people are, to bands that are current or are recent that I really like. And I'm starting with Taylor's Universe, who are a kind of mix of fusion, a mix of prog. They do various different things in there as well, but it's mainly kind of, you know, a kind of jazz fusion thing. They do albums such as Kind of Red, which is much more kind of rock, and it's kind of prog. That's much more kind of straightforward. If you look at kind of easy way in prog wise,
that's a great cover.
Yeah. But there are also kind of more fusion based things that are out there as well. So you've got From Scratch, and you've got Worn Out, and it's definitely not worn out. They're quite prolific. They revolve around a guy called Robin Taylor, who is a multi-instrumentalist. Lots of band members kind of come and go because they are so prolific. There's an album comes out, and he's got various different guises as well. It's not just Taylor's Universe, but albums tend to come out one a year, one every 2 years. The standard is remarkably high, and they're just one of those bands that seem to be able to record fantastic albums. They get really strong reviews, and then you just never hear anything else about them. So that's why I thought they were perfect for a show like this, because, you know, let's try and get people to have a little listen to something that maybe you haven't tried before. So my first pick is Taylor's Universe.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, Robin Taylor has been, I mean, Stephen, you know, you've been with me on Citra and Cooley for a long time, and we probably reviewed, what, 25, 30 of his releases over the years?
And around there under different names, yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of different names, and it's all really good, but yet I mean, they're not a household name by any means. I guess if you follow Sea of Tranquility, you probably read some reviews of some of them over the years. But yeah, and he's a really good instrumentalist and always has top-notch players with him.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a single song on the albums that I've heard that you think, oh, well, you know, kind of going through the motions. When you have a band that release things so often, or an artist that release things so often, you do begin to worry, you know, will the standard drop? And it just hasn't happened. It's right across the board. You can dip in and out anywhere really, and you'll be happy with what you hear, I think.
Yeah, well, he's been a little quieter in recent years, right? I mean, it seemed like it's slowed up a little bit.
It has a little. I think there is something this year that I haven't heard.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not quite as prolific as it's been. But by that I mean we've maybe gone a couple of years without some new music.
Yeah. For a while there was like 2 a year.
Yeah.
You know, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
All right, George.
All right, my first one is from Germany, a band called 7 for 4. Formed in the early 2000s, born out of a German prog metal band called Sieges Even. The guitar player Wolfgang Zenk, he's on 2 of their records, the 2 best if you ask me. He leaves that band, he forms 7 for 4. It's a quartet, all instrumental, on the borderline of prog and fusion. I would say the problem with them is inactivity. I mean, they've been around since the first album is 2001, and they only have 4 albums to date, and they've never been broken up. So obviously they work very slow. That, and you know, they're from Germany. They don't really push the social media thing hard. The last one, Splash, is 2016, a very good record also. All the records are super consistent, great writing, great playing, production's top notch. It just, they haven't gotten a foothold with a lot of people for whatever reason, but if you like the instrumental stuff, I highly recommend it. Really polished stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I've never listened to that.
Wolfgang's playing in another band now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and damn if I can't remember the name. It's more of like a prog rock, prog metal thing. And it'll come to me.
Cool.
And I think 7 for 4 still exists.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, they don't, it's just not very prolific.
No.
Well, now I have shopping to do. Thank you, George.
He was really good on those Sieges Even albums, and like George said, the 2 best, because you know the early Sieges Even albums, the music's great, but the vocals are unbearable.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I can remember many, many, many years ago taking a chance on a couple Sieges Even CDs that I'd never heard the band before. And I bought them from a guy named Ken Golden. Anybody know who he is? I mean,
Yeah.
I've never heard of him.
Scam artist. He's a big scam artist.
Yeah, I'll say.
All right, my first choice for today, band from Columbus, Ohio. I've only ever heard this one album, and I think they've got 1 or 2 others, but this one came out in 2016, 5 years ago, going on 6. Haven't heard another peep from them, so I don't even know if they're still together or not. The band is called Vision and Ageless Light. Very cool space rock band. Tons of mellotron, Hammond organ, Moog, guitars, all sorts of percussion. I think if you like Hawkwind or Osric Tentacles, or even a little Pink Floyd and Gong, that sort of thing. It's just this kind of spacey, wishy-washy, you know, cool, dreamy, atmospheric stuff. It rocks in spots, but it's just it just scratches all the right itches if you love like those analog keyboards, and you know, you dig like Hawkwind and, like I said, Osric's, and just the undulating analog keys over and over again. The vocals are pretty decent. It's just a really, really cool album. I would, you know, again, they kind of like disappeared off the face of the earth, so I'm not sure what the deal is with them now. But
They're done.
they are officially done.
Pretty much. I mean, Lisa is off doing her electronic music. What's really kind of heartbreaking is, you know, we put that out. That was their 3rd album, and the first 2 albums are fantastic. Actually, I think this may be a live one that they put out also. And
You're live at Relay.
there was a double album they were working on. Their guitarist left, and then the new guitarist came in, and they basically put that album to the side, and then they recorded Visions and Ageless Light, and we talked about them going back and working on the second album and finishing it, and they worked on it off and on, and the band just fizzled.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It's hard to keep a band together, man. I'm just telling you.
Well, they used to play a lot. They played a lot in Columbus. I actually got to see them I got to see them in Brooklyn, I think a club called St. Vitus. And I mean, they were incredible. I know they played at Prog Day, but they really focused on Columbus, on the Columbus, Ohio area.
Does that have a real big prog scene over there?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, just to go back into ancient history, I did 2 albums by a band called The Load, who were from Columbus, Ohio. And so, I mean, there is a scene, I guess, or people who in that area who are interested in progressive rock, because the whole Ohio thing, because there were bands from Cleveland as well. You know, you had Atlantis Philharmonic. So it all kind of filtered through. So I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is the Columbus, Ohio listeners are receptive to progressive music. It's not like there's a hotbed or anything, but they have been. There was also another band called Strongbow.
Syzygy. They're also from there.
Are they from Syzygy?
No, they're from Cleveland, right? Syzygy is from
I
Cleveland.
think they may be.
You might be right, Lewis.
But you know, Strongbow was kind of like a prog rock AOR band.
Yeah.
So I would love it if they want to do another album, but I don't think they're interested. Lisa's doing electronic music, very prolific on Bandcamp, and see videos of her on Instagram.
This is a good one. I completely forgot this was on your label. I didn't pick this one just to puff some.
That's cool, man. You can all do that,
my friend. But it's the one I thought about, because I remember how much I liked this, and then they just kind of disappeared without a trace. And
here's an idea that just popped into my head. Let's do a show like the best Laser's Edge and Sensory releases.
We could do that one. There's plenty of them, right? So
Calling Anthony.
About 100. We're up to about 100, about 180, 190 releases.
That's pretty good. Not too bad.
Yeah, a good run.
Not too shabby. All right, Eric, back to you.
And my second band, and if you see me looking down, I'm actually taking notes. So I'm trying to remember.
What's your shopping list going already?
Exactly. But my second band, they're from Spain. They came out, I believe, in 99 or 2000. I saw a couple different things, and I think they have 8 or 9 releases. This album cover will be a bad one to show, but it's a band called Kodabell.
Yes.
And it is the concerto for piano and electric ensemble. So they have it's pretty much a classical piece that they do, very piano based, but the whole band is in there. There's a lot of electric guitar in there still. And I believe they brought in some other orchestral to add to that. But on the additional tracks, after they're done with that, they have a saxophone player that's playing with them on that, which also the other 3 or 4 tracks that fall out of that are fantastic. The only thing I noticed was it looks like they had something that came out, and I don't have everything. I have that one, and there's another one, Ouroboros, I believe it's called. But the last thing I saw from them is 2017, and their website is kind of, it's either not up to date or they're not doing much, because I haven't seen much listed since that release. But that's a really cool, very classically influenced, but a lot of electric guitar in there too. And like I said, the sax that comes in on the other tracks is really done well. Very complex, some really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good band, really good band.
Good choice.
Discipline played a tour with them in Spain. They played in Madrid and some other city. Yeah, so those guys are great. I saw them live in Mexico.
I think they played Prog Day also.
Yeah, they're great. I love them. They're great.
Feigenbaum said that they were great. Yeah.
Good old Steve.
If you get this from Feigenbaum, you are not sucking. This is what I know.
All right, Ken.
I love making fun of him.
I love that guy. He's great.
Wait, I'm gonna get you and him on an album homework assignment show together. Just wait.
Oh, me and
please.
Steve.
I need to
More to
watch
come.
that.
How you guys are
More to
gonna be able
go.
to find albums that the other one hasn't
Oh.
heard is gonna be the challenge.
I'll be up early for that shit. No problem.
It's gonna happen.
I'll send him images and words. His head will
Yeah, that'll fly. That's
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
Oh, too funny. All right, Ken, your next pick.
All right. So before I go with my next one, I just hopped on Discogs, very helpful. Wolfgang Zank, the Ancestry Program, and that's the other band he's in. And they have a brand new album that just came out. And I don't know if he's like a full-time member, but I know I think he plays live with them. So anyway, so my number 4 pick, again, a bit obscure, but people seem to know this. I posted about, if anybody follows my personal Instagram account, or follows me on Facebook, I'm always posting about albums I'm listening to at any given time. Also posting about meat I'm cooking at any given time. So this is an album I was playing this past weekend, and I said this would be a good candidate. British band called Reid. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Reid.
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
You
All right.
talked about this at some point before.
I don't know,
Facebook.
but
Yeah.
Or you probably saw it on my Facebook.
Yeah, that's right. It was on Facebook. That's right.
Yeah,
I
so-
see that.
so
I
Reid,
read that.
They were a one and done British band, and they put out this one album in 1983. And when you look at that cover, it looks like something from the new wave of British heavy metal. So right away, they were doomed from the start because they were nothing like that. They were the wrong band at the wrong time. They were a heavy instrumental jazz rock band, a fusion band. And the guitar player, this guy, Dennis Fitzgibbons, who played like a maniac on these albums. It's kind of got like a Mahavishnu orchestra flavor and just a little bit of King Crimson around the edges, living up to the name, but it's not really a Crimson kind of an album. It's much more of a jazz rock thing. There's a keyboard player, but he kind of gets out of the way and he lets Fitzgibbons do his thing. It's heavy. I mean, it's heavy jazz rock. They were working on a second album, but then they broke up and they just kind of fizzled. And for some reason, it never got reissued on CD. Maybe some label should do it. And yeah, you could find copies pretty cheap. You'll spend more on the postage than you will on the album. But I highly recommend it if you're so inclined for jazz rock fusion. This is a killer album.
Ken, is that self-titled?
Self-titled, yeah. It's kind of hard to find also because it is self-titled. Your best bet is hit up Discogs. Although, I don't know if there's a bootleg out, there's a bootleg.
What year did that come out in?
1983.
Okay.
There's that phony Tachinka label. I think they did this one. But these guys, they didn't do themselves any favors, between, it's like remind me like when Neil Morse had his Question Mark album. It's like, how do you search for that? How do you go on Google and look that up? So,
to be fair, in '83, they weren't worried about whether you could find Reid on Google.
yeah, right, exactly. It's
Mhm.
it's actually
Now
one way.
would be suicide.
One way, it's on Jigsaw Records. I guess they were like a small English label. So if you do a Reid Jigsaw Records, I think there's a couple of tracks up on YouTube. You could hear it. I think it's really good stuff, and it really should have gotten a legit reissue. Supposedly the guys are around, played in other bands. But
I found it on Discogs.
you found it?
Yeah.
Like I said, that Tachinka is a boot. So
Yeah, it was released on CD on Tachinka, but there are copies of the Jigsaw Records LP available.
cheap, right? Yeah, like I said,
Yeah,
you'll
it's
probably
like $10. Yeah.
$10 for the album. You'll spend 20 on the shipping.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if you got a turntable, You need it.
Cool. Interesting stuff. All right, cool. Chuck, back to you.
All right. My number 4 is a Dallas related band. They released an album in 1977 and they added on to it a couple of times over the years. It's the debut album and self-titled album for the band called Hands. What's most people who've never heard them and so they're like a cross between Gentle Giant, Kansas, and Jethro Tull. Awesome band, it's some pretty good stuff on there and so, but like with a lot of American bands that try to do prog, most of the time it's usually the lyrics and the vocals that usually bother people. I've heard people talk about this album and just wish that they were just an instrumental band, but that's my number 4 right here, Hands, the American band from 1977, self-titled album, Hands.
That is a fantastic album.
It's a great album.
That's a good one. Did you ever get the 25 winners or what? They released something?
No, they released something I think in the early 90s, but I didn't get that one.
Right.
Wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, nothing as good as that debut, but everything else that they released has been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good.
I completely. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, Steven, you totally would dig them. They're really good. Yeah,
sounds like it.
Yeah, that first album was they reissued that one on Shroom Records. Was it a Shroom Records?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Rich Pats. Yeah, Rich Pats is label.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Want to go after?
Yeah. Cool. All right, where are we, Lewis?
All right. So my number 4 is a band that I saw them live in Chicago one night. It was one of those crazy double bills. The other band was a band that called Mirthcon, which some of you may know. Crazy killer band. Mirthcon was not actually able to take the stage because their main guy had a kidney stone and he had to be rushed to the hospital.
Oh.
So the gig only took the only band that was on there was the co-headliner or the opener. I don't know what the arrangement was. It's a band from California. I fell in love with a vocalist. She's a beautiful, incredible musician. Her name is Moria Dixon. I'm talking about Motar.
Motar. Oh, they're awesome. That's an excellent album.
This band is fucking amazing, right? This is the only record of theirs that I have. I bought it the day of the gig. It's called From These Small Seeds. And it is truly, it's an original sounding band. Which is something that I really like. I don't think they necessarily sound like anything. They're obviously proggy. They have a little bit of pop. They can be chunky. They use a lot of dissonance. They're great. And I love these guys. So Motar.
Nice album.
And if you get a chance, Moria Dixon, who's a phenomenal singer, check her out. Great band.
I agree.
Are they still together?
I don't know. I think they released something. I mean, well, here's the thing though. I don't want to talk necessarily crap, but this is related on Magna Carta. And that usually can be bad news for bands depending on circumstances. I don't know. So I hope that they're still together. I haven't seen them. Obviously, they don't come out to the Midwest very often from where they are. And this is why I wanted to talk about them, because I think these guys really deserve a wider audience.
And that album, very well.
Yes. So good. So if you can find it, buy it, listen to it on YouTube, and then look it up and buy it. It's just really good. You know?
I really thought that I had heard and had every single Magna Carta release. That does not sound or look familiar to me.
It's a pretty good album.
Was that like released like towards the end of the Magna Carta run?
This is from 2012.
Yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah.
Right. It has a very small little lion. You see, there it is.
Yes.
That's your Magna Carta. Yeah.
They're very untypical for Magna Carta.
Yes, that is not their usual band. But I love them to death, and I wish I could get more of their stuff. I haven't really, you get so hung up on stuff you stop looking. But I love this band, and I thought I'm going to talk about them today because I love them.
Very good. All right, Stephen.
I've got a funny feeling that this is going to be a very expensive show for a lot of people. I know already that I'm I'm not as organized to be taking notes here.
Armando, we're talking to you, Armando.
Well, I don't think he's going to be alone this time because I'm very much in the same boat here. I'm kind of thinking, I like the sound of this one and I like the sound of that one. Hold on a minute. It's nearly the holidays. This is not a good timing. This may be a January rewatch for me, but there you go. So anyway, my number 4, I'm heading off to Germany for a band that are still going. It is based around a guy called Andreas Hack, who is a keyboard player stroke multi-instrumentalist, and they are called Frequency Drift. Okay, so they formed around 2006, I think. They are an excellent band who kind of use an awful lot of standard-ish progressive tropes, but there's a real kind of atmospheric side to them. They use a lot of synth play in what they do. Quite a lot of their work reminds me of Vangelis when he's in cinematic mode, but there's lyrics through most of the albums, not all. I think the most recent one, Feeling of Presence, which I don't have, is instrumental. And I think one of the reasons for that may well be because the 4 albums prior to that all have different vocalists. So I don't quite know what the reason is behind that, but he does seem to be able to find really good singers. I like this one a lot. This is Letters to Marrow. It's got some oriental feel to it, which kind of gives it, with the Vangelis feel, a bit of a Blade Runner sort of atmosphere. But there's other ones as well. There's Last, which kind of takes similar themes and kind of that's maybe more prog in its feel. And also Over, which is the cover will suggest, and maybe a bit of a darker option. So there's albums before which are equally as good, and there's a new one that's come after these 3 as well. Excellent band, very consistent, and I really like the arrangements in it. It's quite subtle, never really forces itself on you. So yeah, Frequency Drift from Germany, excellent band.
Yeah, good band. I haven't heard any of theirs in a number of years, but they've got a few of them out.
Yeah, these are reasonably recent, these 3. These are 3 of the last 5 releases that I've got there. So yeah, it's a good place to start for me personally, would be this. It's not everybody's favourite, but it's the one that I kind of go back to most. So that's Letters from Marrow.
Cool.
Their early albums sounded to me a lot like White Willow.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, actually. Yeah, I would say that's a very fair comparison. Yeah. Keep me right, Ken.
Hey, Steven. Don't forget it.
All right.
Where are we at, George?
All right, my number 4 is originally from Canada. He's relocated to England now. He was in the Canadian heavy prog band called Spaced Out. Then he breaks up that band. He went solo. His name's Antoine Fafard.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
He's a prolific guy. They Spaced Out did 5 albums in the aughts. And since he went solo, he's done 7 albums. All of them super high quality. He gets the best of players. You can tell he's a big drum fan. Like this one has a different drummer on every track. No slouches either. Gavin Harrison, Simon Phillips, Chad Wackerman, Dave Weckl. Then comes the 3rd and 4th to me are the highlight. Got Vinny Colaiuta on this one, and Gary Husband on drums and keyboards on this one.
Nice.
They both feature this guitar player, Jerry DeVilliers Jr., who I talked about on the live album show. Phenomenal guitar player. Like
He could play, man.
yeah, like a Holsworth, but more of a picking edge. Yeah, and then since these, he's done another one with Phillips, one with Todd Sucherman. I mean, who uses him on the prog albums? Instrumental prog. And then another one with Gavin Harrison and a string quartet. So
That one. I like that one.
yeah, everything's high quality with this guy. The productions are great. He's prolific. It's just, all I can explain about it is probably just some people just need vocals. I mean, because there's nothing to pick apart. If you like instrumental stuff, it's great. So Antoine Fafard.
Very cool.
Great choice, man.
I see more.
George, aren't you happy we gave you a week off from having to say this one's kind of obscure? Because today it's all
Can you deal with it? Can you dig it? Right. All right. I'm going to stay in the US for my next pick. These guys have been around like 20 years. They've only got 2 albums out, and boy,
Really?
them are really good. They're from Minnesota. This is their 2017 album. I don't know which one I like better. Their first
Bubble Math.
Bubble Math. There you go.
Good. Yes.
And Peptide from 2017. I mean, these guys are, this is not like easy listening music by any means. This is, if you want really complex music that's, coming at you from different directions every single song. If you like Gentle Giant and Zappa and the Beatles and Ekelin, and if that sounds remotely interesting, you need these guys in your life. At times the music's kind of heavy, but not. It's kind of jazzy, but not. Really complex arrangements. The songs aren't even that long. I mean, yeah, this one's got a couple longish tunes, but just really cool vocals, very quirky. But they don't really, that you can hear their influences, but they have their own sound. And it's just a shame that it takes them so long to put albums together. I mean, this one, 16 years after their debut, this one's on Cuneiform Records. You can probably still get it, but well worth your time. I've talked about Bubble Math on the channel before, awesome. But check out both. The first album is called Such Fine Particles of the Universe. I don't know which one I like better. They're both equally amazing.
They're both great.
Yeah, they're both.
I like the
Shout
debut.
out to Ty.
Probably. Yeah, I would say so. They're both, to me, 4.5 out of 5 stars, or 5 out of 5. I mean, they're that good, both of them. So
Yeah, they're both very good. I like the first one better. They're pretty good, man.
yeah, I mean, it's hard because like I've had the first one since it first came out, so it's like you have all the with that album, and the second album is really kind of recent when you think about it, but they're both amazing. So you could start on either one. But great band, instrumentally just absolutely brilliant. So
I forget if I met them at Prog Day or at Progtoberfest here in Chicago. We were talking about doing some shows together. I love these guys. I love them for so long, and then the pandemic hit. So this is kind of like we have to. That's I'll say.
Speechless.
Yeah, I love those guys.
They're good band. All right, Eric, back to you.
Nice pick, man.
So my number 3, I started surprising myself as I went through my collection, because I always think of it as more guitar heavy, and that's usually what I really like. And the last 3 bands I've got have horns, reeds, violin, and this band is a band that played Nearfest, and it's Forgus Band Phenomena.
Oh yeah.
This one is Act 5. It's also got a DVD of their Nearfest performance. Again, just there's such a great combination with this one of violin and horns, and it just blows me away. Very complex. They're just kind of all over the map. I love the way they use the horns on this. The guitar player, I don't think he's with them any longer, Benjamin Violet, but when he does play, he's on fire. He's a great player. But I just love this stuff, and I'm finding more and more that's what's really appealing to me, is that varied instrumentation. It just adds to what they can offer. I mean, the palette is widened when they can use horns and flutes and reeds, but they're incredible. So check them out.
Forgus is a drummer, correct?
Yes, he's the drummer.
And he writes a lot of stuff. Yeah, they're amazing.
Cool pick.
Nice.
All right, back to Mr. Golden.
All right, so I'm going in a different direction here. So got to think back to around 1997. That's when I started selling a lot of prog metal. And before that, you couldn't find any of these bands unless you picked up a fanzine, something from Europe. But then, the internet caught hold of all these bands, and we used to be able to find out about all these obscure bands in real time. And I was bringing them in and selling them like crazy. This is a band from Germany. Only came out on CD, a little booklet. The band is called Gone, Weakness Within Living Memory. They put out this one amazing album in 1997. I I sold a ton of them, and then Gone was Gone. It's very dark, almost doomy. It's a lot of melancholy. It's an atmospheric driven album. There's no speed here. There's a lot of really cool, crunchy guitar, some like spacey synthesizer solos. It kind of reminded me a bit of Tad Morose, like the first two Tad Morose albums, Sender of Thoughts, Leaving the Past Behind. The singer, you also maybe get some more traditional prog metal. You might hear some Fates Warning, maybe even something like Threshold going on in there. The singer was a guy named Martin Simon, probably not his real name. He sang in an upper register, and I'll just make a terrible comparison. He sounded to me, he sounded a little bit like Roger Hodgson, which may be a plus or a minus for people. I don't know, but just to give some sort of a point of comparison, he's a little bit of a upper register, and it's just one of those albums. They were one of these bands that just didn't sound like everybody else, and I don't know what happened to them. It was just they took all these different elements and they made this very unique sounding album. I was just thinking about it the other day, and I was like, it was actually the first album I thought that I have to talk about and tonight, and I hadn't heard it in years, and I played it, and for me it stood the test of time. To me, it's one of the all-time great prog metal albums, and nobody knows it, and that gives me a sad.
I'm amazed with all the stuff that I was buying from you right around that time, and I used to always contact you and say, what do you got that's new that I would be interested in? You never once steered me in the direction of that, because I'd never heard of it before.
This is what the Jews call a kvetch, Ken.
Yeah. Pete, that was back in the days when I was doing printed catalogs too.
I remember those catalogs were awesome. I remember when you stopped doing those.
I don't have any here, but they're kind of they were crazy. They used to take me. Those catalogs used to take me. They used to take me literally like 2.5 years to write.
Wow.
By the time I would say
they were outdated.
They were outdated. It was like. And it was funny because I launched my first website in '99, I think it was, and my first real Chad Hutchinson helped me. The original Laser's Edge website was done in Mosaic or something like that, and with the Mosaic browser. And I think Chad helped me. There was no such thing as a shopping cart then. Shopping cart, what's that? And then I remember I finally got shopping cart software, a company called Merchandiser, long gone, and I had been working on a catalog for over 2 years, and I was working with Michael Bennett. We were redesigning the whole thing. We were streamlining it. It took me 2 years to work on this thing. And then I remember in '99, I launched my website, and people were ordering. And I just said to my wife, I said, I don't think I have to publish this catalog. And I never published it. And I'd been working, and she was pissed because I can't tell you how many nights I was sitting in the room typing away, and she's like, "What?" But I had uploaded everything to this site, and I was selling, and it was like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to publish these catalogs. Those catalogs were crazy.
They were so good though.
Yeah, I used to write every word in those catalogs. They used to take me forever to write. And then everything was done in Word, Microsoft Word. Yeah, absolutely, Chuck. I used to type those things out, and then, and they used to cost me a fortune to print. The company that printed my CDs, the booklets and everything, they used to print my catalogs also, and then I used to mail them out all over the world. I used to lose so much money. I'd mail a catalog to a guy in Korea. It would cost me $6 in postage. And then he'd buy one CD, or he wouldn't buy it all. It's like, oh God, it has to be a better way. And then
the guy's still trying to read it now. That's the problem. It's supposed to be so big. He's just at the end of it now. He's about to put in a huge order.
Yeah, I know. The funny thing is, I come across every once in a while, I stumble across one of my old catalogs, and I'm like, did I really write this? It's like somebody else wrote it.
The old days.
I feel like breaking out in like the song, the theme song from All in the Family or something like.
Oh.
Glenn Miller played.
Well, if you guys interested in prog metal, put it on your Discogs want list. It doesn't turn up that often, but when it does, it's not expensive because nobody's really looking for it. I think
Gone, right? Gone.
Gone, Weakness Within Living Memory. And some guy later in the comments is going to say, what was the name of that album?
Oh Lord.
What was Ken's number 3?
Yeah. So
I post all the pics.
maybe it'll turn up on eBay or something like that. Not an expensive record.
I got my notes.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's not the traditional Dream Theater or anything like that. There's plenty of good playing on it, but man, it's all about atmosphere. It's got this vibe to it. It's not quite doom metal. It's just kind of this dark, melancholy album, and the singer's good, and some of this, it's really kind of crazy. Some of the synthesizer solos on there, they're like totally wigged out. It's cool stuff.
Nice.
Rare. I'm not finding anything.
Yeah, well, like I said, put it on your wish list because one day it'll pop up and just jump on it.
All right.
Cool. All right.
I don't know whatever happened to these guys. They never went on to do anything else, as far as I could tell.
I got married and got jobs.
As I say, they're on the Volkswagen. They're working at the Volkswagen plant. I don't know. That's we say stupid stuff like that. Yeah, what happened to that Italian man? Oh, they're working at the Fiat factory.
Wow.
What can I tell you?
All right, back to our center square, Chuck.
All right. My number 3 is a Detroit band. They only did 2 albums, but the lead singer, his uncle is in a very famous band, which we've spoken about them quite a bit. Matter of fact, we even mentioned them a couple of times earlier. From Detroit, Michigan. It's a band called Eye Strings, and this is their second album, Consumption. What's that? Ryan Parameter is the nephew of
Matthew Parmenter.
And I really wish that these guys did more. I have a rapport with Ryan. We still talk here and there sometimes and so. But these guys, man, they were like a political based Spock Spear / Radiohead / Echoland. And that second album was a bit more polished than their first one, which was an excellent album, Bird in Hands. But it's their second album. Their second album, Consumption, which is a pretty good album. And it's it deals with all of the things that were going on during the early 2000s, like gas pricing, and other sorts. And this album, once again, Consumption.
I love it.
Love it. From the band Eye Strings.
Chuck, Matt Kennedy, who was a bass player with Discipline, played bass in those records. He was a bass player.
Yes.
And also Ryan became a comedian and he wrote a novel.
Oh, I never read it because last time I spoke to him, he said that he was working on it.
I have it. It's great.
Okay, I got to check it out.
It reminds me of the guy that said half asleep in frog pajamas. He has that kind of a style,
He does.
I forget the name of the author. I'm brain farting, but it's super funny and it's really, really well written. Yeah,
he draws a lot of the stuff as well.
Good choices, man. Nice.
Yeah, that's a good.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. All right, Lewis.
All right. So the next band, they're around. They tour. They all work different music jobs. They have their own like YouTube channels and things, but they're not really like super known. I was once very surprised to find out that one of my students at Columbia actually knew them. So I took a picture of myself with a guy and I sent it to the band and they immediately replied, right? So because he didn't believe I knew them. Like there's no way you know them. Of course, I'm talking about, I'm gonna throw some names: Courtney Swain, Ben Levin, Gavin on drums. I'm talking about Bent Knee. And I first heard them in a little bar in Boston. I don't even remember when. And I heard them play a song called Battle Creek, and I instantly fell in love with this band. And it's from this record. And I think that their most recent one is completely different. They mix electronica with all their stuff, but it's just really, really great music. Another favorite, if you want to try it, is Land Animal. This guy over here. I love Bent Knee, and not only are they fabulous musicians, but they're really great people. And I once had the privilege of cooking breakfast for them when they were touring in Chicago, and they were staying there. So I cooked.
And they survived.
Yeah, those guys are awesome. Yeah. And Gavin, Courtney, you guys, if you're watching, Ben, Jessica, the bass player, love you guys.
Nice album.
Oh yeah,
really, really good.
Good live
That's
band.
pretty good.
Very good live
man.
band.
yes.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, Stephen.
Sorry for the sigh. That's more aimed at me than anything else, because my next choice probably isn't obscure at all. He's well known. He's worked with someone that's remarkably well known because he was half of, and is half of, because they're back again, No Man with Stephen Wilson. Okay, so I'm talking about Tim Bowness or Bowness, not 100% sure. But either way, his solo work, of which there's been quite a lot in recent years, is quite remarkable. I think he needed to be kind of convinced to kind of go alone, because he seemed to have a fallow period. He's worked with Richard Barbieri, also of Porcupine Tree, and a guy, Pete Chilvers. He's probably, arguably, better known for being one of the kind of driving forces behind Burning Shed, who are obviously a great music outlet over here in the UK. I use them regularly myself. And this is Abandoned Dancehall Dreams. It's remarkably melancholy stuff. This is not music to listen to if you're having a poor day, necessarily. It's very singular in its outlook. And Ollie's stuff is very singular in its outlook. He's got a really kind of plaintive, emotive voice, and he plays on that with the lyrics. He doesn't tell particularly cheerful stories. They tend to be quite real life based with the characters that he kind of creates and uses in these stories that he writes to music. And he kind of seems to live it. And I really like the kind of feel and the tone of the album covers. They're all kind of just a bit dark and a bit moody, and it really conveys what's inside. And he created a character who was a big musician, a big star, but then things went on the wane and he started to struggle. And it's not really one of his albums, but as you can tell from the artwork, it joins in with a canon. And this is Moonshot, okay? And this is Worlds of Yesterday, a retrospective 1971 to 1992 of a band that doesn't exist. This is the band that's created from the songs that are on the album. And he actually hasn't, he's not on it. It's other musicians who have come together to form this band, and they work their way through the styles of progressive music, right the way through that kind of prog pop that we got in the 80s, as you go through this compilation album. And it's not my favourite thing he's been involved with, and he's not really part of it, but he's the inspiration behind it, and it wouldn't happen without him. And I love it when an artist gets that involved in what they do, that something borderline ridiculous like this comes out. And it was one of those things, I had to have it. There are some great songs on it, some not so great songs on it, but if you want the whole story, it's part of the story. And these characters kind of pop up between these albums, but to me, this is his best. Abandoned Dancehall Dreams, Tim Bowness. It's fantastic stuff. If you're in the mood for it, if you head in the right space, completely, envelops you. Love him.
Awesome. Yeah, he's done some interesting stuff, that guy.
Yeah, quite prolific after really not doing very much for a period of time. Quite prolific now. You tend to get an album every couple of years. No Man have come back as well with a much more kind of pop dance sort of thing they came back with, which was not what people had anticipated, but Stephen Wilson was involved, so it's not what people anticipate.
Right.
So there you go. That's my number 3.
Cool. All right, George.
Number 3 is from Texas, a band called Shaolin Death Squad. This is a debut EP, 2004. They're like a proggy Faith No More, including the singer bears a resemblance to Patton, and he's a little quirky, not that quirky, but his physical voice quite a bit like Patton. In the 2006, they put out what people regard as their best record. I would agree, Intelligent Design. This is definitely one to check out. There's even a little growly vocals that I put up with on here. In 2010, they do 5 Deadly Venoms. This has got a 5-part suite. They're all in the Chopsaki movies, so it's based on characters from that movie, I believe, or something about it. I'm not quite sure. The title and that song are related to that. Since 2010, the activity has been a little odd. They did a live recreation of Intelligent Design, and then they did an EP, which is a very, very good EP, but it's an EP. And one of the songs is a cover, a great cover, Queen's Death on Two Legs, but that was like 2017, and since then it's pretty quiet. The drummer is Matt Thompson from King Diamond, and he's also in Agora, as such that Agora is still together. I don't know, but it's just, they don't play live anywhere but in their area, and they're not very prolific, so they've kind of earned their obscurity, but it's a shame because it's high quality stuff across the board. Shaolin Death Squad.
Yeah, very cool. Man, Agora, I haven't heard that name in a while. All right, my next choice, another band. These guys are fairly new. They've only been around for a couple of years, although the guitar player is a fairly known quantity. They've released 2 albums. This one I'm going to show and talk about just came out this year. This is unfortunately, I think the guitar player lives in the shadow of his regular band, who really aren't that regular when you think about it. They've been pretty quiet in recent years, but they're a very well-respected prog metal band who have a handful of albums that are some of the best in the business. But he's also got he has a couple bands on the side, but this is one of my favorites. Band is called A Dying Planet. And this album, and this is When the Skies Are Gray, Jason Tipton from 0 Hour.
Yeah.
A couple other projects. This is really good.
Yes.
Really good. It's not like full on 0 hour intensity, although it has its moments, but it's really atmospheric and melodic. To me, this kind of like, if you take like bits and pieces of 0 hour and match it up with Anathema and throw in a little kind of, I almost hate to say it, but he uses some like similar guitar patterns and effects like the Edge from U2 uses at times, mixes that with the big crushing complex, almost gent style riffery of 0 hour, and lots of very melodic, emotional atmosphere, kind of like Anathema. And that's what you get here. The singer on the album, his name is Adrian Villarreal. He sang with Sun Cage. I'm not sure if he still sings with them. Really good singer. He doesn't. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I thought. And it's basically I'll show you a picture of the guys in the band here. There we go. It's a 4-piece. So you got Jason on guitars, you got Brian Hart on bass, Marco Bica on drums, and Paul on vocals. Really good stuff. Fairly lengthy songs. A lot of good hooks in them, but they're not like overly commercial sounding. I think because the songs are so long and they have like all sorts of different parts and textures and things. But man, it's just, the more you listen to it, the more I like it. And it's one of the surprises for me this year. And I think more people need to listen to this. I know everybody's waiting for the next 0 hour album, and as am I, but don't miss out on this, because I think this is a band that deserves your attention. So Jason, if you're watching, love this. I know I've already told you that, but anyway.
Yeah, man, I love that record too.
A Dying Planet. It's so good, right? It's so good.
Yes, it's and I love the lyrical content of it as well. Like it really hangs together.
Oh yeah, and if you like, so I mean, all the lyrics are all about all the shit that's going on in the world today. I mean, it's so topical and so relevant. So yeah, it's just
Very good work.
Yeah, really good.
So
New 0 Hour is coming.
yeah, like how soon is that coming?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say.
Okay, all right, we know it's coming. Good enough.
It's coming.
Next year.
First half of next year.
Cool. There you go. Yeah, we can't wait. That's gonna be immense.
So it's interesting that Jason plays a Les Paul now,
I know, right?
which is funny because he was always playing Ibanez.
Yeah.
Of course. Mr. Shreddy Boy. Yeah.
He loves that Les Paul he's got. Man. He's like playing Neil Schon stuff and all this kind of cool things. It's like, yeah, he's digging it. He's digging it. And immense talent. So he's so good. Such a nice guy. Such a nice- All right, Eric, back to you.
So my number 2 band is from Quebec. And this brought back some memories of when Chad and Rob would start announcing bands for Nearfest. So I used to try to get as much as I could of the bands before, and they, what was it, like month to month, they'd say, announce an act. So they announced this act, and I remember buying the CD, and for some reason, it didn't really connect with me. But I saw them live. They played at Nearfest 2002. It's Myriador. And they blew me away live. I walked out of there I'm like, what did I miss listening to that record? And I've loved them ever since. They're extremely quirky, but they're so tuneful at the same time. It's the only way I can explain it. And,
I like them.
they do have Parade, which also has the 2002 show from Nearfest. And they have a number, I think they had something in 2017 or 2018.
They had a
Nothing
couple.
since then.
Cobra, and there was another one.
Signal 9 or something, I think is the last one. But and same thing, they have, I think it's 4 guys, but they do have a lot of guest musicians where they'll have sax and trumpet, violin in different spots. But boy, I'll tell you, I think that band impressed me more than any band I ever saw at Nearfest in terms of a band that I didn't know. And I think I'd listened to the CD a couple times before, the show, but I just walked out of there absolutely blown away, and I love them. So that's my number 2.
Nice.
I think they one of the 2 years where Nick moved to Trenton, I think, didn't Myriador play like at that bar like downtown one night, like either that Friday night or Saturday night after?
I think it was it was 2003 because they played Nearfest 2002 in Trenton, and then I think 2003 they actually did the Friday night gig or whatever, right?
I booked those shows. I'm trying to remember. We did Woodenhead one year.
Yep.
And I think maybe Myriador opened for Woodenhead. We did, and we did McGill Mannering Stevens with Dr. Nerve opening.
Yes, I remember.
All of those bands are worthy of note here. Woodenhead, McGill Mannering Stevens, Dr. Nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole show on like all the bands here at Nearfest. I mean, it's just crazy. All worthy of mention.
Absolutely.
Cool, good choice. Yeah, Mirador was great. Great. All right, Ken, back to you.
All right. Well, whether you like it or not, you're getting 2 albums for the price of 1.
Wow.
You're getting 2A and you're getting 2B, and you're gonna like it.
What a bargain.
All right. You got first one, Julian's Treatment. A time before this. That was from 1970. Came out in the US in 72. Followed by Julian J. Savrin, Waiters on the Dance. And the reason why I'm talking about them together is because they were 2 parts of a proposed trilogy. So the third part never happened. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Julian J. Savrin. He was a British science fiction writer and a musician. He, as I said, the first one came out as double album, single album in the US. Somehow they crammed it all into one album, but this is the British pressing on Youngblood Records. And the sound is virtually identical. He had different lineups. He had some woman, Kathy Pruden, singing on the first album. And the second album, she was replaced by Lady Joe Meek. And Joe Meek's sister was Anna, who sang in the British band Caterpillar. I don't know if you know Caterpillar, the jazz rock band.
Jazz rock band.
Yep.
Key to
So,
the-
so it's just basically like pure ELP and worship, and the nice with these ethereal vocals. It's a science fiction concept piece, and the story's a bunch of rubbish, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of mellotron, plenty of guitar, and I love the production. It's kind of got like a little bit of like that late 60s swing in London sound, maybe a little bit of like Abominable Dr. Fives mixed in there, and it kind of reminds me a little bit maybe of like Earth and Fire, something like that. That early, some people would maybe call it proto prog. He goes crazy on the Hammond. So yeah, it's definitely got like that ELP sound. And and nothing, and that was it. He made the 2 albums, and then he gave up, and he just started writing these like kind of like pulpy sci-fi novels that apparently had some level of success. So and both have been reissued. Esoteric, I'm pretty sure, did them. Karma did them. It was bootlegs, so they're readily available, and I think they're great albums, and nobody really talks about them.
I have to look into those.
I think I want to look into that as well.
Yeah, well, that wish list is getting longer by the minute.
Yeah.
All right, Chuck, what do you got for me?
I got a German band. What's today? Whenever they talk about German bands, they talk about some of my favorites like Faust, what's a Can, Nectar, although they're really a British band. But I'm going to mention a band called Guru Guru. I'm going to go off their album, Huntington. This album over here? It's like Jimi Hendrix meets, at times meets like a cosmic, if you could describe them, like, they have like the searing guitars, and then they also have like that psychedelic kind of, harshness to them. Sometimes, they could be a little bit brutal at times, but this album right here is the first album that I purchased from them, Heinten. And some pretty cosmic folky stuff on there, man. And that's the album that I picked out. Goo Goo from 1971, Heinten. If you guys ever heard of them, these are these German bands, man. A whole bunch of them out there.
Great band.
Yep. I just bought that recently myself.
Love it.
And Chuck, you will be happy. Guess what I just ordered like yesterday?
Okay. What, some cardiacs?
I ordered a can, I guess. Can.
Okay.
Tago
Mago. Nice. Oh, well, I hope you enjoy it. There's a few instrumentals on there, so I guess
this is why I ordered, because I listened to some of those other ones with that Suzuki character singing. I'm like, no. That's not happening at all. That's the bad. People love it. I don't get it. I listened to this one. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That I can deal with.
Cardiacs is next on your list, man.
Yes, man.
I'm one of the few people that like the later Can albums.
Well, they're not bad, because they were more instrumental and they were pretty much more funkier. There was a lot of James Brown and Sly and the Family Stone influences on those albums.
Yeah,
Tigermouth always makes fun of me because I listen to those albums.
All right, Louis, back to you.
Okay, so for my next one, I want to give a shout out to a band that, we seem to be in a theme here. The first time I ever saw them was at Nearfest, and then I saw them play in Chicago numerous times when they used to tour. I'm not sure if they're still together or not, but I'm assuming that the guy in New Jersey will be able to set me straight. I even had the opportunity to play a show with them here at Reggie's. I'm talking about Morgable.
Yes.
To me, frankly, it's a travesty that Christophe Godin has not been invited to play in a G3 tour. The guy is that good.
Yep.
And these guys are not only amazing musicians, but they're they're fucking funny.
Mhm.
And they're entertaining, and they're just great dudes, right, all around. So, I mean, I just can't say enough good things about them, and it broke my heart to see them play in front of the other bands who were lining up to play after them in one of these dive bars in north side of Chicago, right? That was the audience, and some wino who didn't give a shit about anything except his next round, right? That was it. So, but these dudes are incredible, and I mean, if I'm not really here to do Ken's marketing because nobody wants to buy anything from me, but he has all these records, and I think
Well
that
worth it. Mhm.
you should avail yourself while you're able, because later, as you're talking about some of these other ones, when these sell out, there's not like there's going to be a slew of reprints. So get these records; they're all fucking great. This happens to be, you always remember your first. So this was my first, Jazz for the Deaf, but they're all really good.
Yep.
And I would highly recommend, if you like instrumental music, that it's not really like, I mean, you could compare it to Satriani or Vai or these things, but it's different. It's just, for me, it's just better. And it has a lot more humor.
Sounds more like a band.
Yeah. And it's great. It's great. This is great stuff. The songs don't exist as a pretext for a guitar solo.
Right.
No.
And that's the important thing. I love them.
Yeah, they were on my longer list to talk
An amazing band, man. Mhm.
Yes.
For those watching who've never heard of them before, it's spelled Morgbl, Morgbl, right?
Morglbl, but the O has an umlaut.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
great band.
And you know the story of that name? Christophe told me that when they were getting together initially, somebody got them a gig, but they didn't have a name for the band. So you just kind of mumbled into the phone. That's how that came about.
That's funny.
What's the name? Nous sommes le Morgbl. I hung up. That's how it went.
I got turned on to those guys by Bumblefoot.
All right.
Yeah, Ron told me about them, and because Christoph was endorsed by VGA Guitars, and Ron was endorsed by VGA, so he sent me some CDs, and I thought it was great stuff, and I started selling the CDs, and then I got in contact with Christoph at some point, and I actually went over to see them play at a festival in Amsterdam, in Amstelveen, and I can't remember the name of the festival. Actually, it was kind of cool festival because it had 3 bands at the festival. It was Morgbl was playing, we had 0 Hour was playing there, Redemption was playing there, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum was playing there. It was a great festival. Anyway, and Morgbl blew everybody away, and we agreed to work together, and so I've put out all their albums and reissued the first 2 that they had done. So right now the band's still together. They're working with Maggie Luyten, the vocalist. She's a great singer, very soulful singer, basically popular in the metal world. And they have a new band called The Prize, and it's not Morgbl music. It's basically melodic hard rock, and as you can imagine, the playing is stupidly great. And they are kind of looking for a deal. I'm not sure what they're going to do, if they're going to put the album out themselves, but they are playing. They just started playing, and I think they're going to do that for a while. And then, but Morgbl still exists. The crazy thing about Morgbl is that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of them being successful clinicians, is like they got invited to do a tour of China. I mean, these guys play China. I mean, it's how many bands, get to go play China, get invited. I mean, it's
so rare. It's so rare.
And they love coming here, and they tour here. The guys from Humphreys McGee loved them and got them a gig at George may know it, some big outdoor festival that's in Chicago every year. I can't remember what it's called, but like in the outskirts, like it was. And he got him like an opening slot or something. They probably played to like 10 squirrels, but they, you know, yeah, you see that band, and you just can't not love that band. I mean, they're self-deprecating, funny, and just ridiculous musicians.
Oh, they're awesome.
They
You
take,
know,
yeah.
I told a friend of mine that they remind me that they don't sound like, but they remind me of the quartet era of 10cc. You know, what's band members that are just that talented, and you know, and they have a lot of humor to their music. You know, they don't sound like 10cc, nor their influence on them, but that's who they remind me of. You know, one of those type of bands. And that's a band that I wish that was far more famous than what they were. I'll be spreading the word on those guys, man. They're that good.
We might see them again someday.
Oh, I'll just be promoting them even more.
I mean, they love coming over here.
Yeah, these guys are great.
I mean, they don't care. They don't care if they play in front of 10 people,
That's
or
right.
100 people, or
That's right.
you know, whatever.
Cool, great band. I agree. All right, Stephen, back to you.
So my next pick is a US band, quite new. They've got 3 albums now. Their debut came out in 2016. The band is called Evership. Okay, and they're one of those bands, they're not a guilty pleasure because they're fantastically good. They're as prog as they come. Are they doing anything original? They sound a bit like Kansas. They sound a bit like Styx. There's an element of early Queen in there. Their singer, a guy called Bo West, not Bo Jest, Bo West. It reminds me of Brad Delp, so there's a bit of Boston in there. So they just kind of tick all of those boxes. But every now and again, there's a band that comes along and releases an album that's blatantly taking from an era that doesn't just sound like a modern band taking from an era. They sound like they come from that era. And that's where Evership, no pun intended, landed for me. It just hit me as hard as that. And I do think that the debut is quite astonishing in just how good it is. It's an independent release, so the production isn't quite what it might be if they'd had a bit of a budget behind them, but it's kind of adds to the authenticity in many ways, and they use instruments from the era to kind of build on that as well. So they've released 3 albums in total. So there's the fantastically titled Evership 2 that followed it. And then there's, from this year, there is the Uncrowned King Act 1. So Act 2 is following. Yes, that cover is as bad as you think it is, by the way.
Wow.
Not good. Okay. I must admit that the album title, The Uncrowned King Act 1, followed by that, do you know, kind of maybe, I'll be honest and say that the albums kind of do this. The debut's astonishingly good. The second album doesn't quite match it, but it's not far away. And this doesn't quite match the second, but it's not far away. Had this been the debut, this would still be on the show. I'd be raving about this album, telling you that it was brilliant. But the debut, so the self-titled debut from Evership, 2016, I love it to bits, and I play it regularly all the time. It's great album.
Yeah, I've only heard the first one. That's quite good.
All 3 are definitely worth having, Peter. If you like the first, you'll like them all. There is, for me personally, a slight sliding scale. It feels like one of those acts. It's a guy, Shane Atkinson, who does most of it. He's kind of the multi-instrumentalist. He writes most of it. His brother, James, plays guitar. And it seems to kind of revolve around them and the singer, Bo. And I think I get the impression the first album took a long time to come together. He was in some sort of, I think, grunge act back in the 90s. And then he just kind of thought, don't like the music business, I'm not going to do that. Went away and did other things, worked in the corporate world, and then came back to what he loved, which was prog, rather than chasing what the scene was at the time. And it feels like one of those albums took a long time to get released, and then they've kind of been quite prolific since. But the standard is high across all 3, but if you want to get into them, I would start with the debut. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they're to me, and again, they don't really sound a lot like them, but their kind of take on the whole retro sound reminds me at times of like Cats in Space. It's very accessible, very, you can tell where their influences are coming from.
Yeah.
And
I think it's clear that Cats in Space are British, and
Yeah.
Evership are from the US. That's kind of because the influences are exactly the same, but they process them in a completely different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. All right, George.
My number 2 was going to be Kick the Cat, but Porter blew me out of the water. I'm going to improvise here and say, because I've been on a kick lately, I want to talk about Kenzo.
Nice. Mhm.
Yes.
Love them.
Japanese.
Thank you for introducing.
Instrumental band. They go through some phases. There's 4 albums in the 80s. Those are more fusion. And then the 90s goes a little more prog rock. There's only 2 studio records, and they start putting out a lot of live albums. Those got a heavy edge to a lot of them, like 1999, a Soptron that's almost Zeppelinish in some of the riffing, like instrumental Zeppelin stuff. 2000s, there's only 2 discs, studio discs, a bunch of live stuff. They do a lot of live albums. The studio discs are, I haven't heard the most recent one from 2014, but the one from 2006 might be my favorite of their stuff. It's really good. Just consistently creative band that everybody should hear. I think probably everybody here has, but a lot of people probably haven't, and they should. Kenzo.
Another great band.
Yeah.
Nice pick, man.
And man, were they good live again. Another near fest memory. Whew.
That's
They're
the
live
only
albums.
one I missed. And that's
Oh,
because
really?
my daughter was born that summer, and my wife was like, "Hey, man, are you gonna make it back?" Yeah, I'll be
Wow.
back. It'll be fine. And I got the look that said that it would be fine.
You passed up Kenzo for that?
I mean, I was 50-50. I got to be honest.
Wow. Honey.
No, I love you, and I'll be around later.
I never saw so many cables on stage as that Kenzo. They had so much gear.
Yeah.
I remember, like, yeah. And isn't the main guy in the band, isn't he like a dentist?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He's like a dentist. Yeah.
Yeah. He makes a hell of a lot more money in his day job than he does in Kenzo. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, sheesh.
Yeah, great band though. High quality music.
They really are, man.
The first 2 albums are totally different. The first 2 albums are like symphonic rock albums, and then they just kind of got more into the fusion direction after that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I need to get more of their. I only have like a handful of their albums. I have so many. How many, George? How many are they up to now? Like studio albums?
9, I think.
Yeah.
They got an equal amount of live
A
albums.
lot of live albums.
A lot
Yeah.
of live albums.
I remember we used to sell a box set of some sort. I don't even remember what was in it.
Yeah, there's like 14 discs in that thing. That's got to be beaucoup bucks.
It was when we were selling it. I could imagine what it's going for now. I don't think it's around. It's expensive.
All right, like George, I had to do a little jigging around here because my fellow New Yorker also kicked the cat. Apparently, everybody's into the whole kicking the cat thing these days. So,
Meow.
yeah, meow is right. But a great band. I mean, they deserve to be mentioned, so it's cool. So this band, I don't know how obscure they are. I think they're obscure to like non-prog people. Well, I think the hardcore prog crowd probably they're not on their radar, but I think this band is fairly well known in their home of Norway. But here they're still more of a cult band. Motorcycle. Kind of prog, kind of stonerish, kind of space rock. They've been around a long ass time. I mean, they've got like a shitload of albums. They've been around since the early 90s, so 30 years, and they've been pretty prolific in recent years. I mean, they've been cranking out an album a year, it seems like, for the last couple of years. And this is their 2020 release. They've been doing like these double album sets, which again, give them credit for that. They've got a new one called Kingdom of Oblivion, and the couple that came before this one, The Tower and The Crucible, both single releases, really, really good. Lot of cool keyboards. You got Mellotron, good driving riffs, good vocals. It's kind of, like I said, kind of spacey in spots. Some of the songs are really like accessible sounding. They got epic tracks, shorter tracks, a little bit of everything. Really cool album artwork on most of their releases. Sometimes they're kind of hard to get here, but they're on that Rune Gramophone label, which has some pretty cool stuff, some avant-garde stuff, some fusion stuff, whatnot. So yeah, Motorcycle, not Motorcycle,
the All Is One. Very cool band if you haven't checked them out. Again, be prepared if you start listening to them. They got a lot of albums. And I don't know, like the older stuff is heavier. They're more of a prog band now, or prog psych band now, but definitely check out their last like 5 or 6 releases, which I've all heard they're really good. Back to Eric. Oh, number 1. Here we go.
So I'm going to come back to the United States for my number 1. This is a band that's from the Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. And because of my love of Happy the Man, I discovered them. And they were, I believe, on the Kinesis label is where I got this. It's from 1981. The band is called However.
Ooh, nice.
Sudden Dusk. Very odd. There's some Gentle Giant. There's a lot of very atmospheric stuff in there. I never knew how much I liked the clarinet until I heard that record. There's a bunch of clarinet on that record and some piano pieces. I believe 2 or 3 of the members went to the New England Conservatory, so top-notch musicians. There was a little intertwining. I think a few of them had played with Stan Whitaker or Kit Watkins at one point prior to Happy the Man and this band forming, but I don't think they played live very long, and they did have a follow-up calling, which for some reason didn't hit me like this one did, but that's my number 1. However, Sudden Dusk.
Nice.
Well, that's a good one. Very cool. All right, Ken, you're number 1 or last pick.
So I want to give a plug for my friends Jeff Wagner and Hunter Jin over at Radical Research Podcast. I don't know if you guys ever listened to them or if you're familiar with Jeff and Hunter. Hunter's the drummer in Canvas Solaris. And Jeff Wagner, he used to be the editor of Metal Maniacs, and he's a great author. He's worked at Century Media. He worked with Inside Out Music. So they have a great podcast, and the subject matter is whatever they feel like. They could be talking about black metal, death metal, prog rock. They could do a show on just some prog band. And so the other day they did a segment on jazz rock fusion, and they reminded me of an album that I actually turned them on to. And I said, that's the album. That's my number 1. And it's an album which I'm sure all of you guys have. It's very common, and nobody pays any respect to this guy. Mingo Lewis.
Yes.
Flight Never Ending.
Yep. Love it.
So Mingo Lewis, he's a very well-known percussionist. He toured with Santana and Al Di Meola. So in 1976, he made this album, and it's just one of the most lethal fusion albums ever released. It's just really one of the all-time greats, and nobody pays attention to it. I mean, first of all, like, I don't think I've ever seen a copy on vinyl that wasn't marked as a demo. I paid $2 for it, and you could always find this in like the five and under dollar bin. It just sells for nothing, and it took 41 years for it to get released on CD. So it is out officially on CD. You can find it's out of print, but it doesn't, like the album, it doesn't really go for very much. It's non-stop high intensity guitar and keyboard soloing with Lewis doing like this Latin infused percussion throughout the whole thing. You never heard of any of the guys who play with him, before or since, but each one of the guys that's on the album is just like this absolute monster. There's this one track. Well, all these tracks are great. They're all long. There's this track called Heart Song. And it has like this treacherous synth solo that's like from another planet. It's just extraordinary stuff. Another track, The Wizard, was actually re-recorded for Al Di Meola's Land of the Midnight Sun album, slightly truncated form. And it's just really aggressive. I mean, it's just nonstop. And when it's over, you're going to be exhausted and you're going to listen to it again. You're just going to, it's just a brilliant album. This album for me is a masterpiece. It's a fusion album that has all the elements that you want from a fusion album, but he tied it together in a way that makes it stand out from all the others.
Very much like a Jan Hammer, but a little bit more earthier.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that has to do with his percussion,
Mhm.
you know. And it's just great record.
Nice pick, man. Mhm.
But it's the only that's the only solo album he did, correct?
It's the only one.
Mhm.
It's I probably because you can find the album for $2. You know, it didn't sell. You know, he made this great album and it didn't sell. And yeah,
There's
really,
a second song on there that Demiola ended up doing, but they just retitled it. But yeah,
okay.
great.
Yeah, that track Frankincense. I don't know if that was the one, but
That, I think is it. Yeah.
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous album. It's readily available. You could find it online. You could hear it on Spotify. You know, go on YouTube, wherever. It's yeah, boo. But if you want to check it out, so that you can go out and buy it, you know, that's one way. And by the way, as shitty as Spotify is, YouTube's even worse if you're listening to albums as far as the pay rate. So the payout. So yeah, if you like fusion and you don't have this album, man, you're missing out.
Nice. Mhm.
Luis, do you have that album?
I do. I
See?
love it.
Even Luis has it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even I have it.
Yeah.
And I bought it too. I didn't steal it.
Really? The first for him.
I have to keep you guessing, Ken. It's what I do.
What flea market?
No, I got it at Reckless Records here in Chicago.
Oh, you come across it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Chuck, our center square.
All right, my number one actually was hanging out with this gentleman this weekend, New York-based gentleman, guitar virtuoso Nick Devosky. What's I'm playing? This is Dr. Nerve. You know, Dr. Nerve, Skin. You know,
what a great one.
you know, this band, you know, they're not for everyone. I'm not gonna say that they're for everyone, but you know, when I spoke to him, we were talking, we were laughing and giggling, and he had a lot of stories about Steve Feigelbaum, but I don't want to get into that, you know. Both he and Mark Adler, you know, they were just going off. But anyway, getting back to Dr. Nerve, you know, I described their music as Cardiacs meets Ornette Coleman, you know, but I mean that in a very good way, you know, because, you know, you have a band, you know, that plays very much Zappa-ish. And, you know, these guys, they bring it, man. And Skin happens to be one of my favorites from him. I should have brought it so he could have signed it for me and so autographed it. But, you know, this band, I wish that, in my opinion, is so because I like rock and opposition bands. And this happens to be one of my favorites from this group. And it's Dr. Nerve from 1995, Skin.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Good choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Lewis.
All right. So since already people mentioned Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum,
Nice.
and my crush Carla Kilstead, who played violin and sang with them,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do an audible since they've already been mentioned, and I'm just gonna accidentally show you my shirt as I go up, you know. But I want to show you.
Oh, he's showing us too much, man.
There's never too much. As I've explained to you already, once you have Mexican, you'll never have sex again.
Luis, I don't want to see your junk, please.
And I wanna talk about a friend of mine who's worked with a lot of people in a lot of different contexts, but he has his own project, which is I'm talking about Matthias Olsson,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking about his own project Molsum.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with this is one of my favorite albums. It's Be My Baby Tonight. I remember when he picked out the cover too. We were on tour with Devil's Staircase and he picked this thing. It was hilarious. And this is him in his studio doing what he does, right?
You know, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Matthias is the only man I know who actually has the Korg Miku pedal non-ironically. He actually uses it for his stuff. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a little pedal that you run your guitar through it, and it makes it sound like a character from a Japanese cartoon. He finds a musical way to use it. So I just want to give a big shout out to Matthias at Rothandle and Molson. And in particular, there's another album I want to mention. I know, Pete, you're a big fan of Cathedral with Tom Duncan and those guys, the original record. He made a final record with Tom before he died, but this is a one he put out during the pandemic. It's called Molson, Tom and Tiger. It's about, of course, Tom and his eldest daughter, Tiger. You know, there's been a complicated, but it's a happy ending. And Tiger now sings with her dad and has been putting out her own music. So if people want to hear this stuff, just go to Rough Handle on Bandcamp and listen to it. This is very atmospheric. It's not, there's a lot of percussion, but then there's also just a lot of melody. And in a way, some of these things remind me of sort of Pete Townshend's early demos for Who's Next,
Lighthouse.
when he was working with the
Lighthouse.
Yeah, Lifehouse, and it just has a lot of that vibe. It's a very, very creative stuff, and then he just does what he does with all his toys, right? But he has all kinds of toys that he plays with. I think people have not really given, because everybody thinks of Matthias, they think of Anglagard, or they think of other things. They don't necessarily think of this. And I think that this is really, really quite original and quite good. And he's done like, I want to say 7 solo records as Molson. And I really recommend them. They're very, very good.
Nice.
By the way, if anybody's interested, that effects pedal that Lewis was talking about, what's that called again?
Miku, the Korg by Korg. Miku by Korg.
There is a absolutely hilarious video on Anderton's TV of Lee, the Captain Anderton, and Rob Chapman testing out that thing, and the both of them are uncontrollably laughing throughout the whole video. And this thing makes the most ungodly, ugly sounds you will ever hear.
What Matthias does in his own YouTube channel, he'll run it through like a Led Zeppelin song. He'll get the stems. He did that for Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Nice.
This is must-see YouTube TV. He put it on his drums too. At some point, he sent me these drum tracks, and they had the Miku, and I was like, "All right, this is enough. Is enough. We're not doing this shit."
I'm gonna drop the video in the comments below. I'll write myself a note, because it's like I have never heard anything like it. And people actually bought this thing.
And you know what?
If you right, and just like upset your guests and have them running for the hills.
No. If you try to buy it now, it runs for like $500.
Oh, Jesus! Wow.
Oh yeah. This is a collector's item now.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, your final pick of the day.
Well, my final pick of the day is a band from the UK, from England. They come from, I think, Huddersfield in England. They formed in 1995 and around there, and they revolve around the Morricone brothers. So you've got Paul on vocals, guitar, sax, dulcimer, keyboards, name an instrument, he probably plays it. And his brother Stephen, who also sings bass, keyboards, sax, double bass, name an instrument, he probably plays it. And the band is the Scaramanga Six. Okay.
Wow. What a great name.
Yeah, what a great name. Okay, now I first came across this band. They supported, I think they opened for Ginger Wildheart. And it was just one of those nights where I think there was 3 of us at that gig. And they came on, and one song in, we're all just kind of standing there going, what just happened? So I thought, how do I explain this band when I talk about them tonight? And I thought, well, I have reviewed this. So I thought, did I say anything worthy in my review? Probably not. But what I did find was that I wrote down that they sound along the lines of Buffalo Tom and Husker Du married to the Dead Kennedys and the Cardiacs via XDC, King Crimson, who are rushing headlong into the Knack and ABBA. Okay? So
right up my alley.
I'm sold.
ABBA.
I'm sold.
Basically, if that sounds vaguely interesting, times it by 10 and imagine that rushing headlong at you. Okay, so this is Chronica. This is not the most recent album because the brand new out this week, fantastically titled Worthless Music, came out this week. Okay, and this is the sort of band that they are. So Paul Morricone also has some solo stuff where he kind of marries crooning with kind of the smallest side of David Bowie. And it's kind of, I saw him live as well, and he just stood up with a microphone and a backing track, and we thought, this is going to be garbage. And it was gold. It was absolutely fantastic because he played it so straight. And he sings songs about like the ring road around his hometown, but he makes it feel something. And you think that makes no sense whatsoever. So the fact that the first song on this album is called The Narnials of Chronica should tell you something about what's going on here. And I like this sort of stuff. Okay, I'm a sucker for this sort of stuff. So this is a double album concept piece that is about every day, about the garbage in the world, but it's presented in the most bonkers kind of way. There's everything here from prog to fusion to rock to punk. They write massive grooves. They sit on them for just that little bit too long. And it's just, they've got that kind of ability about them to just draw you in and hold you there. I mean, they write a song called Dirty Subaru. Okay, so like about the sports car. I mean, but the vocals in it are like Dirty Subaru. It's just bonkers and it's crazy and it's absolutely brilliant. And nobody seems to know very much about them. So the Scaramanga Six are my number one choice. Chronica is fantastic. And I've listened to Worthless Music 3 times today, and it's going to get a lot of rotation again tomorrow, because so far, this is kind of up there. There you go.
Where have you been all my life, Stephen?
Oh, money, where have you gone?
So good. I'm gonna get that, man.
They've got a lot of stuff out there. I would start with the more recent and work your way back.
All right.
Cool. All right, George, your final pick of the day.
Mine's from Japan. Actually, a duo in name lineup. They have supporting musicians called Kaio-sen. 2 women, a drummer and a B3 player. They fluff out the album with occasional bass guests, and guitar player Koichi Yubori is in a relationship with the organ player, I believe. He was from Fragile, fusion brand that broke up. But they come out in 2014. Sounds like a Niacin meets Lifetime. That organ trio sound, big, the mammoth riffs on it. And it's better to me than both, because you got the guitar that Niacin lacks, and you don't have the production issues and Tony Williams singing that you get on Lifetime. This is where they hit. This is the 3rd album. This is where they hit their stride. Trick or Treat. And they go to Organizer. This is really, really good. The most recent one's called Dramatica. They've got 2 after this. It's kind of an offshoot. They're calling it Kaio-sen Jazz, which is more, they're leaning more into jazzy stuff, some standards, and Senri is kind of playing more of a swinging thing with the B3. But these 3 albums in particular, just pounding B3 stuff, and Kaiomi does play some electric boards too. She's also in the Japanese happy jazz band Cassiopeia, but this stuff just kicks ass over all that stuff. So Kaio-sen.
Nice. Sounds tremendous.
Yeah, check it out. Very good.
Cool. All right, my final pick, I'm going to go to Sweden, because why not? Great stuff coming out of Sweden, right? This is a band I remember hearing their debut album in 2014. Really liked it a lot. They've been pretty consistent with putting stuff out every year or two. They just released their 4th album. Ken Golden knows these guys very, very well. The band is called Agusa. This is their brand new one, which is called An Annen Varld.
Hopefully I said that correctly. Their other albums are Hogtid, Tva, and Agusa self-titled. All instrumental. If you like Anglagard, Jethro Tull, early Genesis, maybe a bit of King Crimson or Moody Blues, but a lot of flute, a lot of mellotron, Hammond organ, acoustic and electric guitars, kind of spacey, kind of folky. It's definitely prog. Really, really lovely songs. This one here is 2 long epic tracks. Just amazing band. Think of like a less kind of complex and like intense Anglagard. These guys are a little more laid back, but just as enchanting. Beautiful music. I love this band quite a bit, and more folks need to know about them. So, Ken, I don't know if you want to say anything about them. You had them on your label for a bit.
Yeah, well, I didn't do that album, but I did the 2 previous. I did a great band, and that album is one of my top albums of the year, I think, for prog rock.
Yeah,
prog. Yeah, I mean, there's a very strong folk influence. If you like some of the 70s Swedish bands, Sanna Mamas Mana, things
Love
like
them.
that.
Love them.
You would like it. Ragnarok, if you remember the Swedish band Ragnarok. Again, sort of, it's very melodic. It's got a nice flow to it, and a lot of nice Hammond organ and flute. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah, I like the way the songs kind of take you on a journey too.
Yeah.
They kind of lull you, you have this really long, extended, like kind of camelish melodic passage, and then all of a sudden, like things get heavier, and then these guitar solos just explode out of nowhere, and really good. And loads of flute, a lot of flute on the album. If you like flute, you come to the right place. So cool. Anybody want to throw out some honorable mentions? I'm sure everybody's got a couple of them, right? At least Eric.
Sure. I'll go back to Nearfest. I'll be quick. Bird Songs of the Mesozoic.
Beautiful.
Is one. Another one from George. I don't know if this is so obscure, but Cab. Great band. Tony McAlpine, Dennis Chambers. Sorry about that. Bunny Burnell and Brian Auger on that one on Cab 2.
Nice.
Lyle Workman.
That's a good one.
Great guitar player, great producer. And just because I know people know his name, but I just don't think he gets enough attention, is Mike Keneally.
Yes.
Just a great player, guitar and keyboards.
Very
Obviously
humorous.
played with Zappa, right? And just an amazing musician. And I know people know his name, but he just doesn't seem to get that push. So
Nope. Could play with the best of them. Either keyboards or guitar.
Yep.
Can write well too.
Yes. Ken, you got any honorables?
I got one. I mean, I had a whole long list, but they're kind of obscure, and unless I go into a long ramble, they're just gonna be named. So there is one that I have here that I wanted to talk a little bit about. The second album from Esperanto. And I don't know if you know Esperanto. They made 3 albums for A&M Records. They were a multinational band. They don't sing in Esperanto. So the band had 2 violinists. Is it a violist? A cellist. They had male vocals, female vocals, very classically influenced. Pete Sinfield produced this album. So he brings a little bit of like an ELP and PFM feel to the production. It's kind of reminiscent a little bit of Curved Air. They're a little controversial. A lot of people don't really like the albums all that much, but this was the one. This was the second album. This was the best one. I thought it was a cool album. And again, it's one of those albums came out on CD, I think in Japan, and you can find the vinyl copy for $5. Worth your attention if you stumble across it. Cool. As I said, I had some other crazy stuff. British bands like T2, Fantasy Picker. They were, British prog band from '73. Still Life, recorded for the Vertigo label. Maybe if we do a part 2, it'll be something for me to talk about.
Cool. Chuck, you got any?
Very quickly, I was thinking about maybe perhaps I've mentioned them before. Doctors of Madness. what's that? The album. You have to forgive me. My handwriting's real small, and I'm getting old. The late night and movies all night. Their debut album? It's a mix between early Roxy Music with Eno and probably perhaps sensational Alex Harvey band. You know, they were an influence on bands like early Ultravox. You know, early Ultravox sounds nothing like the Midge-Ur era, and so that I've mentioned before. You know, these guys at this time, they still rocked. They were also the progenitors to a lot of the punk movement of that time, from 1977, Doctors of Madness, Late Nights. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And we forgive you. We all have the olds too, so don't worry.
Getting bad now.
Right, Lewis? Right?
I have a couple. I mean, we didn't mention them, but I just want to show the disc. Of course, this is the debut of Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, grand opening.
Mm-hmm.
This is an absolute Stone Cold classic. Just the opening track, Sleep is Wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Followed by Ambugaton. That's it. I was sold, right? These guys kick ass. And then, you know, the bass player, the guitarist, Niels and Dan Rathburn, they went ahead and they continued after they broke up with Free Salamander Exhibit, which is really, I've seen them live once when they did come to Chicago. It's not as amazing as Sleepy Time because you don't have Carla. And to see Carla play live is to just have a total crush on that woman. That's all there is to it. But they're great, and the music is amazing. So this is very angular. So if you like, you know, very structured pop tunes, this is most definitely not your jam. But if you really want to allow your brain to do some math and just take a plunge into the vortex of weird, this stuff is unbelievable. I love that. And another one that I just wanted to mention, because I've been listening to them a lot recently. I really, really like them. I don't know what happened to them. They have a Scandinavian vibe. I don't know much about them. The band is called Patos. And the album is Calocane. You can see the Patos Calocane.
Yeah.
The lineup is a bit unusual. It's their typical drums and bass and keyboards and guitars, but also a violin player. And they have an exquisite female singer. Her name is Petronella. I'm gonna pronounce it as a Mexican, and this is fucking Scandinavian. So Petronella Nettermalm. I'm sorry that I just disrespected your language and culture, but that's as good as it gets for me. And I love this record. So I hope that if people get a chance to give these guys a listen. And I have another one of their albums, but this is my favorite. Like, I would recommend this one as a starting point, because I was just surprised that they came out. I thought they were great. They're on a good label. You know, they're on Inside Out, but then they sort of just vanished, right? So I love these guys.
It had the guys from Lambert were on the original album.
Yeah.
Raina Fisk and Stefan Dimla.
Yes.
Kind of like the post Lambert band.
Another great band. Yeah. Should have been mentioned here.
White Willow was mentioned. White Willow is great.
Oh yeah.
But they're not obscure.
The Opium Cartel that Jacob's also in, you know.
That's obscure.
I have to recover, man. I'm sorry.
By the way, I hope if Carla Kilstad is watching this, make sure your phone number is unlisted.
Wow.
I can find people. I'm like a human hound. I don't need a phone.
Yeah. This guy's a little stalkerish.
But it works.
Just saying.
No, she's great, and she does stuff with the Tin Hat Trio. She's even played with Tom Waits, all kinds of people. She's all over the place. She's phenomenal. And now she does this Rabbit Radio, this like subscription thing with her husband, who was an old drummer from Sleepy Time. So yeah, she's a great person.
Very talented.
Yeah.
Stephen, you got any of your honorables?
I do. I'll be quick because I've got 3 or 4 here. Femme, which does stand for something, but it's written way too small for me to read at this time of day. Spulabola di Sapone is the name of the album there. But if you like Italian prog traditions done in a kind of more modern way, they're a good shout for you. I had to mention any band called Elephants of Scotland, who are obviously from the US. Where else would they be from? Kind of traditional, kind of prog. There's a bit of a Rush feel about these. Excellent album cover. That's really cool, really smart. I like them a lot. Atomworks, who are a UK band. This is the Life of Spice, which is a very involved concept album. They are just playing traditional prog remarkably well. That was one of the best albums from like last year. And the last one I wanted to mention was Votum or Votum, who are Polish. They kind of started out as more a very kind of modern journey that they've gone on. Started off as a very heavy band. Have kind of moved more into the prog. There's an element of Riverside kind of meets Opeth in there somewhere. Saw them live supporting Riverside, and they were just outstanding. And I bought everything they had basically on the merch stall that night. And I also put up Opus, but I've spoken about them before. Irish band, fantastic concept album. If you like an album that has as much narration and story, it's genuinely like a radio play as it does excellent music, then Origin is for you. And then Triptych 75, where they actually almost pretend to be a band from 1975, Opus. And that's me.
Cool. Nice. George.
I just got a couple. Yorgos Fakanis, a Greek bass player, a fusion bass player. He works with Mike Stern and Brett Garsed, Dennis Chambers. Guthrie Govan was on his last double live album. I've said before, that's the best Guthrie playing I've ever heard. And also a Canadian band called The Living. Chuck, you'd be on this one. This is more chilled out Mr. Bungle, another kind of a Mike Patton kind of singer, but they have a string trio and a trumpet player.
Nice.
Real cool stuff. They're pretty obscure. They only have a few records.
What's the name of this again? I'm sorry, forgive me.
The Living.
The Living, okay.
But yeah, a Canadian band, but that's all I got.
Cool. All right, I just got a couple too, and I couldn't find my props for them. A US band, instrumental band, kind of a fusion band that kind of sound like maybe Steve Morse band or the Dregs, Points North.
Nice.
In there as well. Really talented band. Also, where are they on this? Suspire, a pretty cool progressive metal band from Boston, right? From the Boston.
Suspire? From New Jersey.
Suspire's from Jersey? I thought they're from Boston.
I put out their last album.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah. They're from Boston, but all right, Jersey. But anyway, great band.
They live down the street from Ken.
Yeah, that's probably how
I saw them play at Rutgers.
Still in Ken's basement. Hasn't let them out yet.
It's been like 9 years, right?
Yeah, the corner of my eye, see that bottle of ketchup going down oh, yes, yeah, really good. I think what they got, Venoms, I think, really good prog metal band, very intelligent lyrics, good instrumental stuff. And two bands from Leonardo's Moon June label, Marbin and The Wrong Object, both really cool, kind of like funky, fusion-y, jazz rock type of bands, pretty raucous, a lot of great, saxophone and guitar solos and things like that. Both bands are really, really good. That's all I got for today. And another prog metal band, also on one of Ken's labels, Prospect, The Illuminated Sky. Really good band.
Heard of them.
Really good.
Heard of them.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So that's all I got. So thanks for watching, everybody, on this another epic episode of In the Prog Seat. Lots of stuff, a lot of homework, a lot of I think the Laser's Edge website is going to be ringing ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching over the next 24 hours as people start watching this. But yeah, a lot of music to check out. So hopefully we will get everybody's picks in the comment section below, so you guys can go look all this stuff up and go see if it's some of this music is for you. So I want to thank everybody here for doing the homework, and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Like I said, make sure you head over to lasercd.com and check out the wide catalog of prog and prog metal and fusion releases on Ken's website. And we'll see you all next week here on The Proxy. For Eric, for Ken, for Chuck, for Lewis, for Stephen, and for George, I am Pete. We'll see everybody next time. Take care. Bye-bye.